Hello, GPAR. Good morning. Welcome to our first coffee talk with President Annette Collier. So happy to see so many of you here, bright and shiny on a nine o'clock Monday morning. We've got a long week ahead of us as we prepare for the Super Bowl. Seems like it may take longer than a week, but we're really looking forward to next week. But first, we're going to deal with coffee talk today, and that's what we're really excited about, this opportunity to go ahead and have a great session with all of you. First, before we get into the coffee talk, we want to look ahead to February 13th, and we will be having a happy hour. It's a mixer with BIA and Urban Developers Association. It's part of our Black History Month celebration. It's going to be at Two Locals Brewing Company. So our president, Annette Collier, will be the featured guest there, if you will. Annette will Q&A session there. It'll be a great networking opportunity and a really cool thing. Two Locals Brewing is the first African-American brewery in the state of Pennsylvania. So they're doing great stuff there. So join us for some good beer, some great conversation, some networking. 5:30 to 7:30. Again, that's February 13th. We sent an email out to everybody. There's a registration link there. And we hope that you can join us. There's no fee to attend. Cash bar, light fare will be provided. And we hope to see you there. So if you're not there, spread the word. Again, more the merrier, February 13th. I would love to see you there. So let's get this started. Good morning, President Annette.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. CEO, Matt Bren. Thank you so much. I really love your support. Good morning, everyone. I am so delighted to introduce to you my president, which is Madam Courtney Johnson Rose. She is the president for the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And many of you have heard about the State of Housing in Black America report. So she's going to privilege us this morning with that information. So, Madam President, thank you so much for joining us here in Philadelphia via Zoom.
Yeah.
And earlier, I saw you with your, she's got the Eagles green on, everybody. Go Eagles. So thank you so much. She's out of Houston, Texas, and she is definitely a mentor to me. I mean, I'm just so grateful for you being able to join us this morning. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Annette. And I want to say congratulations to you on your new leadership role. This is awesome. And I know that you're going to do a great job in 2025 for Philadelphia. I also want to say congratulations, Philadelphia, for making it to the Super Bowl. I am a fan, so I'll be rooting for you all and with you all on next week. What an awesome accomplishment. So looking forward to the game. And then last but certainly not least, I want to say happy Black History Month to everyone. And what a great way to kick off the month with talking about the state of housing in Black America. So I will jump in. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. So let me know when you all can see my screen. Give me a thumbs up or a nod or something of that nature. Can you all see the presentation? Okay, perfect. We are rocking and rolling. Now, the next thing is, let's see if y'all see me move the presentation. Did it move? Yes, perfect, perfect. We are cooking with grease, as they say. So I want to go back to the first slide because there's a QR code on there. With that QR code, you have the ability to download the report for yourself. And take advantage of the data that's in there. Second thing I want to mention is a website called NAREB BlackWealthTour.com, NAREB BlackWealthTour.com. On there, we have a brain trust page, and the State of Housing in Black America report is one of the things that we do, but we also have a wire report focused on Black women investing in real estate. We have a report on heirs property and the amount of wealth that African Americans lose in heirs property situations and ways to remedy that. And we also have a report on appraisal bias in Black and white that shows appraisal bias and solutions to overcome appraisal bias. So just know that SHIBA is one report, and SHIBA is our nickname for State of Housing in Black America. But just know that NAREB produces a lot of data. I also want to take this opportunity to introduce some of you all to the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. You may not know what NAREB is, but NAREB is the premier network of Black real estate professionals. We were founded in 1947. And we have grown to 117 local chapters across the country. And our network includes real estate brokers, real estate agents, real estate appraisers, property managers, housing counselors, and developers. So just know that we are the full gamut of real estate industry. Our focus is democracy and housing. So that includes everyone. And democracy includes everyone, but that has been our focus for the past 77 years. We have a lot of great initiatives, in our Philadelphia chapter is one of our most active, exciting chapters under the leadership of Dave Hudson, who we call Super Dave. And Annette Collier was our immediate past president of our Philadelphia local realtors chapter. So just know we have great leadership across the country, but particularly in the Philadelphia market. So let's jump in. So State of Housing in Black America, NAREB started doing this report 10 years ago, because what we found is that in the Black community, real estate is a little bit different. There's some barriers that we have that other culture and races do not have. A lot of it stems from systematic racism. The reality is, in this country, one of the reasons why we celebrate Black history is because of some of the things that African Americans have had to overcome. And that's definitely has been financial challenges as well as civil rights challenges. So with that, when you look at racism in terms of income levels, job opportunities, and things of that nature, you certainly see it when it comes to financing a home or buying real estate. Those challenges definitely come out. So we started as an organization focused on democracy and housing. We started to study this so we can really understand the actual problem. And the most important thing about our report, we talk about the status, we talk about the barriers, but most importantly, we spend the bulk of the report focused on solutions to the state of housing in Black America. So I do want to share with you all a little bit about that. So affordability right now is what we indicate as the number one challenge of Black homeownership. Of course, there's some things like down payment assistance. There's some things like debt to income ratio that all play a factor in that. Of course, credit scores. But at the end of the day, as you all know, as real estate professionals, our housing supply is so low right now that it's affecting every market, not just African Americans, but every market. But with that, the problem is exacerbated in Black communities because, and for Black borrowers, because as the prices are squeezed, because inventory is lower, it increases prices. It's just a supply and demand issue. It affects the low to moderate income market even more, because those homes that used to be low to moderate, because of the housing shortage, they get pushed up to be middle class housing instead of low to moderate income housing. So this whole issue around affordability and housing shortage and housing inventory is right now the most critical issue affecting Black homeownership. So some of our key findings on the supply of homes, and you all know this, we are running 2 to 3 months of inventory. And that's pretty consistent across the United States. Again, a balanced market, as you all know, is about 6 months. So we have kept this imbalance for several years. And again, it's just compounded on top of each other over the years to create such an issue. The percentage of loans closed, this is something that we like to look at in terms of global warming and homeownership and the effects of climate change and the effects of hurricanes, waves, and flooding. I don't have it in this particular presentation, but the full SHIBA presentation, we show a map of where African Americans live. Where we traditionally live are along the coastlines. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, all the way up to the Carolinas, up to the DC area, all the way up to you all, Philadelphia. We like these coastal areas, and because of that, it makes our community more subject to climate change, floodings, hurricanes, heat waves, etc. This is the overall homeownership rate between Black and white. You see this disparity, and it has pretty much grown over the years. 1930, post-World War, Americans came back from war. That's when HUD was created. A lot of the housing stock in our communities were created. That's when suburbs were created. You see why homeownership since the 1930s has grown to 74%. You see Black homeownership has grown from 24% only to 45%. And we've been stagnant at about 45% for the past 3 to 5 years, mainly because of inventory and then other things in terms of qualification that affects us. Now, 74 to 75% is a significant number because I don't really think that you will ever get 100% homeownership. People are always moving, people are always getting divorced, people are always changing jobs. It's always something that's happening in the cycle of life. They just graduated from college, they're in the workforce, but they're, getting themselves ready for that next move. So I don't think we'll ever achieve 100% homeownership in communities because of the life cycle and things of that nature that it takes to buy a home. But 75% is pretty much almost everyone who wants a house has that opportunity within reason. So we want to definitely look at strategies through the State of Housing in Black America of how do we get our African American community up to these same rates. We look at median net worth. So you look at the homeownership rate and that gap, and then you also see it correlated the same way when it comes to median net worth. So as we all know, as real estate professionals, homeownership has a huge a role to play in the net worth and building worth process, which is why it's so important to increase African American homeownership. We look at with our State of Housing Black America report, the denial rates, very critical information. So you look at Black applicants get denied on average 17% of the time that they apply. So almost 20% of African Americans that apply for a loan get denied for the loan versus non-Hispanic white applicants, only 7%. So what does that mean? That means that almost 1 out of 5 African Americans that try to purchase a home go through the process. They call a bank, they call a realtor, real estate professional, and they go through the process, but 1 in 5 of them do not get that initial approval. So again, we've analyzed that data. Number one reason is that they don't get the approval is not credit, not down payment, but debt to income ratio. And there's a lot of things that we unpack in the report about debt to income ratio and why that's the number one reason. One reason is just disparity in terms of income and salaries. A stat from the Labor Statistics Union is that Black women with a master's degree on average earn the same amount as a white man with a high school diploma. So again, a Black woman with a master's degree earns about the same amount on average per year as a white man with a high school diploma. So when we look at that type of income disparity, we look at the incomes that African Americans receive a lot of times for doing similar jobs versus the expenses. Everyone has a cell phone. If you have children, your children have cell phones. Everybody needs a car. Everybody has to pay rent. Everybody needs gas in their car. Everybody has to eat. So all of these same expenses have to happen. But I have a master's degree versus somebody with a high school diploma, but I make the same amount. I have a high school degree. He has a high school degree, but he gets paid $5 per hour more than I do. But we still have the same expenses to run our same household. So what we find is that debt to income ratio is the issue because I still have the same amount of debt in household expenses, but I don't have the same income to actually cover it. So this is one thing that we attribute greatly to the denial rate. Again, the number one reason is not credit or not down payment assistance or not needing a down payment. It is debt to income ratio. We also look at millennials. This is something that is particularly disturbing to NAREB because we know millennials are the future. And we know that we have to focus in on this number because this shows us the future of homeownership by looking at how millennials are purchasing. You see that the gap is just as wide, if not a little bit wider, when it comes to Black millennials versus white millennials. We look at the percentage of home loans purchased in census tract again with heat waves, etc. This is one thing that we've been advocating for. Annette and I are going to talk about some policy stuff when we get to Q&A, and we welcome you all's questions in the chat as well. But we've looked at credit score models, and through VantageScore, one of the things that we're advocating is VantageScore as to be used as one of the models instead of just FICO. When we look at the African American community and the things that VantageScore, their matrix of how they create your credit score, we believe in several cases that it can be more advantageous to Black borrowers based upon the percentages and the things that they value in terms of how they come up with your actual credit score. So with some of the challenges that African Americans face, particularly with debt to income ratio, how VantageScore is calculated is actually a better calculation versus FICO for our community. And there's been some modeling done on, how much homeownership could increase in the Black community if the powers that be would allow VantageScore to be used in addition to FICO. With that, we have definitely called on some recommendations, and I want to go through many of those with you all. So one is, as I mentioned, affordability and inventory is our number one impediment to Black homeownership right now. With that, we know the solution is more housing, more housing, more housing, more housing, and creating inventory. With that in mind, NAREB has created our NAREB Developers Academy. We are very intentional about teaching our members how to develop real estate. We have, as I mentioned earlier, developers that are part of our network that have a background in development. I'm a second generation developer, second generation realtist and real estate broker and realtor. My father started in real estate in 1974 before I was born. So I was born into this industry and I've seen development in brokerage and what homeownership can actually do for families. And with that in mind, our developers program is focused on helping our members develop real estate. Particularly, we're focused on emerging developers. So these are developers that have developed a couple of houses. They flipped some homes and done renovation. We want to give them the ability, the skill set, the network to be able to scale those efforts. There is a member there from our NAREB chapter by the name of Owen Doublet. Owen has done a 14-unit affordable housing apartment complex without any training, without any prior assistance and things of that nature. We can put someone like Owen in the academy that did 14 units. Well, next time with the scale and the training and the technical resources, he can do 50 units. We want to be able to take a situation like that with a small scale emerging developer and give them the ability to scale. So we're very focused on that. Our developers are focused on infill lots in urban areas. They're focused on renovation of blighted homes. So again, doing our part to try to increase inventory, particularly in inner city and urban areas. Second, we're looking at a partnership with the Housing Preservation Exchange. This is a little bit in flux with the change of the administration, but NAREB had a special contract with HUD. And when those assets come up for foreclosure that are considered to be HUD homes, we have the ability through a partnership called HPE to purchase those homes and be able to put them back into the housing stock. You all probably experienced this the same way I do in Houston, which is a lot of times when inventory comes up, particularly in minority areas, institutionalized investors end up being the main buyers for those. This was a program we're focused on to be able to have our members, realtors, list and sell those homes to homeowners. So we are very intentional about this and want to continue to work with HUD on this program. Our National Homeownership Tax Credit Program. We have seen, and you all are probably familiar with low-income housing tax credits. Those are tax credits that are particularly for building rental units that are affordable. There is a way to use the tax credits to also build affordable home ownership opportunity type communities where you can purchase a home. We're very focused on seeing the U.S. government work with this program and tweak the low income housing tax program to be able to use it for single family home development that can be for purchase. There are some examples of it. It's a way that you can utilize the existing LIHTC program, but again, it's not the primary way that the program's used. So we're advocating that the program is used to its full extent, and we utilize it for building homes that can be sold also too. First choice mortgage product. There is a product that HUD has that's specific to Native Americans, and it has some underwriting guidelines that are specific and catered to that community and some of the challenges that Native Americans have had to overcome when it comes to purchasing real estate. We are advocating for the same type of program for African Americans because of the unique challenges that we have had to overcome in this country as well. This program, Section 184, is a great model of a specialized program through HUD that can be administered through FHA. We want to look at that same type of model for the African American community as well, again, based upon some of the unique challenges that we've identified, like higher debt to income ratio. So if the guidelines could be 2% higher allowance for debt to income ratio, we know that that would move the needle for several African Americans getting qualified. And then last but certainly not least, the NAREB Building Black Wealth Tour. We're extremely excited about the tour. We are on our second year of the NAREB Black Wealth Tour. Check us out on nareblackwealthtour.com. We have been to over 110 cities so far, and we will do another 100 cities in 2025. Our tour are Saturday events that are designed to be community days that we invite our community to come out to learn about home ownership. We have identified lack of finance products, lack of inventory as major concerns, but also there's a lack of confidence in the Black community about buying real estate. Interest rates are high, inventory's low. The media, talks a lot about real estate and the lack of opportunities, and you just have a community that lacks the confidence that's needed to go out and purchase real estate. Our data, SHIBA Report, shows us there are more than 2 million mortgage-ready Black Americans. Mortgage-ready means they have the income, they have the credit, but they have not purchased real estate. Our data shows that there are 5.4 million total mortgage-ready, near-ready, or almost ready Black Americans. So that means that there's a huge pool of Black Americans that could be eligible to purchase a house. Our Black Wealth Tour are community days in cities all across the country designed to provide a comfortable environment to inspire and educate our community to purchase real estate. We're coming to Philadelphia. Our Black Wealth Tour will be April 12th, 2025. So we look forward to having you all support as we look at outreaching into the Black community to bring them to homeownership opportunities. So Annette, I will stop there, and hopefully there's some questions in the chat, and I know you and I definitely have plenty that we can talk about.
Well, thank you so much for this excellent report. I think it's one of the best things that NAREB has created, one of them. So thank you so much. But in talking about the SHIBA report, what are the most striking findings from this year's State of Housing in Black America report, the SHIBA report?
Yeah, I think for me, the most striking thing coming in as president of NAREB, kind of learning about State of Housing Black America, being on the back end, if you will, is number one, debt to income ratio is the number one impediment. I would always think that it was credit, or always thought that it was, down payment assistance. That's what you hear a lot of. Oh, we have down payment assistance programs, etc. But it's debt to income ratio. So that was something that was really shocking to me. The second thing is just how huge the market of Black consumers are. That when we put all of the data together, there's 5.4 million ready, almost ready, or near ready. That means that near ready means you need to increase your credit score by 10 points and you can qualify. Almost ready means that you just need to save for your down payment, or you need to pay your debt down a little bit to get over that debt to income ratio qualification. So that's exciting to me, because the pool and the opportunity really for all realtors to be able to help African Americans achieve homeownership. It's a really, really exciting number to say that the community is that large of almost or near or mortgage ready consumers.
Mhm. We just need to get them over the line. So
That's
that's
all we have
great.
to do. That's all we have to do. They are right there. So that is very, very, very exciting.
Have there been any significant changes or improvements in Black home ownership rates compared to previous years?
Yeah, we've seen pretty much stagnation over the past 5 years. And it's interesting because COVID, everyone knows post-COVID, coming out of COVID, home ownership and, opportunities to buy was just so aggressive in markets across the country, so much pent up demand. But because the inventory wasn't there, we did not get to experience a big bump because of that. And to be honest with you, Annette, in some communities, we lost a little bit of home ownership because of the homes that we would have bought because of the housing shortage. Just again, did not no longer qualify. We no longer qualified for. So traditional neighborhoods where African Americans could afford are now, $50,000 to $100,000 more expensive than they were coming out of COVID. And this overall effect of inventory shortage. So we have seen pretty much stagnation over the past 3 to 5 years, and I do not quite honestly estimate a true increase until inventory is more balanced.
Yeah. I know we talked about some, or you talked about some of the barriers, but what are the biggest barriers still preventing Black families from achieving home ownership today?
Yeah, so we have it down to three categories. One is lack of financing products. So again, understanding what those barriers are, like debt to income ratio. Are there special purpose credit programs, or are there lenders that can kind of understand that and look at how do you balance that out to get the approval? We looked at the slide that showed the 17% denial rate. So almost 1 in 5 are not getting approved. How do we create the loan products that help us overcome that particular value barrier with debt to income ratios? Second, we're seeing lack of inventory. How do we develop, particularly in these communities? I'm very excited about renovation products. Because renovation is something in our inner cities that can really build more housing stock in a more affordable way. Brick and mortar is just expensive. And now with the the supplies being what they are, labor is going to be even more of a challenge in this type of administration that we're in. I don't really see the cost of building a home going down. So what about if we renovate homes? It's a win-win. You bring up the housing stock in communities, you get rid of blight in certain areas, and it's a lot less expensive in many cases to renovate a home and bring it back online than it is to go from the ground up. So we think that is a huge advantage, and that's one of the things that our Black Developers Program focuses on. And then thirdly, it's just lack of confidence. The African American community was hit the hardest by the 2007, 2008, 2009 foreclosure crisis. So now you have a lot of those kids that parents lost their homes. They're now in the market. So it's a lack of confidence. You look at the interest rates, it's a lack of confidence. You look at the inventory, it's a lack of confidence. And we're seeing it particularly with Black millennials that just are not pursuing homeownership. Our data, I don't have a slide on it, but our data does show the number of mortgage applications. And mortgage applications from Black millennials are down year to date 26%. So that means you have 26% Black millennials even applying for a mortgage. We know that that's just a lack of confidence in the market, which is why the Building Black Wealth Tour is so important to get them excited again and make homeownership a goal. It may not happen this year, but our tour is designed to make homeownership the goal of African American millennials.
Very good. Economic and policy factors. How have rising interest rates and inflation affected Black home buyers and homeowners?
Yeah, inflation, I think, has affected everyone. I don't think it's anybody on this call that can say they go to the grocery store. I have one little route. I have two kids. My daughter's 10, my son's 15. Everybody brings their lunch to school. So on Sundays, on Saturday or Sunday, some kind of way I have to make it to the grocery store. And I have one little thing. I put it in my cart. They bring it to my car. Used to be $67. Then it went to $85. Then it went to $92. Then it went to $107. The same, I'm just pushing the button. Everybody wants their same little stuff every week. And I'm like, how is this cost going up? So just imagine that happening across the board for every consumer. And now you have a group of consumers that don't have generational wealth. That's just a fact in our communities. Most of our homeowners are first generation and first time. That means that their parents, if you look at 10 people in the Black community, only 4 of them own a home. So that means 6 of them do not own a home. So that means most likely their parents and their grandparents may not have ever owned a home. So there's no one to push you. There's no one to get advice from. There's no one to mentor you from your family that has gone through this experience. And even the majority, based upon the stats of your friends and families and church members, etc., 60% of them, most of them have never owned a home either. So we see the inflation in the economic situation affect the Black community and our consumer confidence even more because I don't have that family history, because I don't have generational wealth, because my parents can't help me with the down payment, because I saw my one aunt and uncle who tried to get a house and they lost it in 2008 and 2009, and I remember that. So the economy has affected what we see, particularly with the Black millennial being down 26% and even applying for a mortgage. This economic state scares us and we internalize it more because we don't have the same safety net of generational wealth. So with that, it has affected us in an even greater way.
Great. Are there specific policy recommendations from NAREB to help close the Black home ownership gap?
Yes. Those were some of the policies that we went over on that last slide. But we are promoting anything that increases housing supply. I talked about the low income housing tax credit program and how that's been used for apartments and rental, affordable rental, which is important, but the program has the ability to be used for affordable single family homeownership opportunities. We're advocating for that same program that's already out there, that's already utilized in cities, et cetera, et cetera. We're advocating for that same program to be used for homeownership opportunities. I do want to bring up something else that we didn't talk about yet, and that which is our NAREB Heirs Property Report. So we have identified, of course, homeownership opportunities to push increasing Black wealth, but we are also very focused on things that take away from Black wealth that's existing already. We can't, it's like putting water into the glass, but there's a hole at the bottom of it and the water's coming out. So we're focused on filling that hole in the bottom of the glass and also putting more water in. In heirs property, there's two major areas. One is heirs property, and two, appraisal bias that I want to just kind of touch on. So heirs property is when there is a property in the family that is not passed on properly. So that wealth is lost because it's not passed on property. When we look at farmland, and we did a Black farmers event focused on urban farmers there in Philadelphia with you all in September, there has been millions of acres lost to heirs properties issues within the Black community. Even when we look at inner cities, some of these areas are gentrifying and changing and becoming more valuable, but the family has not been educated on how to pass that property along properly to the next generation. And with that, it creates a huge gap in terms of wealth. So, Philadelphia, I know you all have gentrifying areas and urban cities, and that wealth is being lost. We've created through the Black Wealth Tour a session called What to Do with Big Mama's House. And we have curated it with the National Bar Association. And the National Bar is the Black lawyers. So we're the Black real estate professionals. National Bar is the Black lawyers, founded in 1925. And together we go into communities to talk about what to do with your family's property, how to get it probated, how to change the deed, how to create a will, these things so we're not losing property. But with that, there's some policy positions. Nakima Williams, representative out of Georgia, and Lizzie Fletcher, representative out of Texas, have a bill called the Heirs Property Act. And this bill is actually where it's designed to take money from HUD's budget to give to families. Families can apply for a grant, not just Black families, any family dealing with this can apply for a grant. And they can use those grant dollars to hire a real estate professional or hire an attorney to help them through the heirs property issue to get the paperwork straight. Once your paperwork's straight, then you have that ability to sell that property, keep that property, renovate that property, leverage that property. So that's one bill that we are very much focused on. The other one is appraisal bias. So we have realized through appraisal bias, and I want to just compliment the previous administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that put a lot of focus on appraisal bias and started the PAVE initiative through HUD under previous Secretary Marcia Fudge. And this proved the fact that appraisal bias actually exists. There's the data. People felt it. You saw it in some of your transactions, but there was never hardcore data and analysis of previous appraisals that would allow you to see that this is, from a data perspective, this is actually happening. And we definitely see that. NAREB has produced our own appraisal bias report. Again, you can get that at NAREBBlackWealthTour.com under our brain trust. All of these reports that I've mentioned today are there. But with that, there's also recommendations on appraisal bias because, again, we're focused on building Black home ownership, and putting water into the cup, but we also have to stop it from coming out of the cup. If you want to refinance your property and be able to leverage that equity that you have to send your kids to college, it's not fair if you do an appraisal with your financial institution and your bank, and your value comes out 10% lower than your neighbors. That's 10% less equity that you get to experience because of racial appraisal bias. So we are very much focused on that because that's equity, that's wealth. People use that equity to start businesses, to send kids to college, and we want to make sure that our community is getting their fair share of what they've invested in.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Philadelphia, the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, as well as the Philadelphia, I don't know, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Did we
can.
lose him? Okay. The Greater Philadelphia uh, Realtor Association has been a part of Convergence. And so
Yes, with the
we've
MBA.
and yeah, and thank you so much for bringing PMBR, which is the Philadelphia Metropolitan Board of Realtors, one of the chapters of NAREB, into that conversation, which we and GPAR continue to participate. Under our current mayor, Sherelle Parker, who at the time was a council person, she is the one that brought to the forefront about the bias appraisal. So she created a task force, which that is still in existence here in Philadelphia under her leadership as mayor. So the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, as well as the Philadelphia Metropolitan Board of Realtors, have been proactive in addressing that matter. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
Um,
Glad to hear that.
yes. All right. And so let's see. Industry and market trends. What demographic shifts are we seeing among Black homeowners, and how should the real estate industry respond?
Demographic shifts. So I love this question because I think it's important for every realtor to understand the demographic shifts in the country and that the home buyer of the future is Black and brown. So that's the way that the demographics have kind of shifted in the country. It's what's here and who's here. And we have a demographer in Houston area, and Houston is said to be the look of the future. So Houston is officially right now majority minority. That means that the majority, we've reached over 50%, that 50% of the population is Black or brown, or people of color, including Asians, also to the Asian population. So with that, this is how the rest of the country will look in the next 10 to 20 years. So as a real estate professional, you have to think about, well, I want to be in the business. Many of us I'm second generation. Our business was passed along to me and my brother. I would love to see my children pass along as well. Um, but when I think about that, the home buyer that if my children were in this business, or if I stay in this business, which I plan to be in 20 more years, the home buyer that I'm catering to, the home buyer that I'm selling to is Black or brown. So you have to kind of click and say, wow, where is the potential in this industry? I just mentioned 2 million mortgage ready Black Americans. I just mentioned 5.4 million almost near or ready uh, mortgage ready African Americans. That's where the future of the industry is. So if you plan to be in real estate for the next 10 to 20 years, if you have a franchise or a business that you want to sell and keep building, I think that you have to pay attention to the demographics of our country and kind of prepare your business for who the home buying market is. It's just so much potential in the Black and brown communities. And I think every real estate professional planning for the future has to be conscious of that and plan accordingly.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty as well, keeping track of those people who might not qualify today, but
Yes,
then keeping them in mind and
that's your
following up and
pipeline.
also encouraging them. As real
Yes,
estate professionals, it's not just, hey, I'm walking out the door today to sell you a house. it's also developing relationship and
Yes,
encouraging them to stay encouraged, right?
yes, yes.
Um, the next question is, how do appraisal bias and disparities in home valuations impact Black wealth building opportunities?
Yeah, we just talked about that a few minutes
Yeah.
ago, you know, with these scenarios of appraisal bias. And one example is that I use was, you know, I'm refinancing, I'm not getting the value out. But I'll give another example to answer this question. And that's one of the things that we looked at in our NAREB appraisal bias report, and that is we looked at home purchases. A lot of the data that we've seen on appraisal bias is when you sell a home, but we looked at it as when you purchase a home. So you purchase a home, or you're in the process of purchasing a home. Um, you're purchasing a home in a minority community, and you're trying to purchase that home, but you're on the home buyer side, but the appraisal bias is happening on the home seller side that you're trying to purchase. When that appraisal bias happens, and say that the contract price does not match what the appraisal is. Contract price is 300,000, appraisal only comes in at 280,000. What happens to that borrower that's trying to purchase? They're a victim of appraisal bias also too, because most situations, those deals result in a bust out. And when you have a bust out, you lose the money you pay for the appraisal. You lose the money you pay for the inspection. You're battling for your earnest money back, and you're starting your whole application process and looking and everything else over again. So really looking at everybody that's affected by appraisal bias. We've talked a lot about the seller, but we haven't talked a lot about the buyers that are also in many cases victims of appraisal bias also too, because it costs them as the buyer, and then many times costs them the deal when appraisal bias pops up. So just know the NAREB report on appraisal bias is very interesting because we do take a different perspective and kind of look at everyone that's affected when appraisal bias happens.
Good. Are there particular metro areas or regions where Black home ownership is increasing or decreasing significantly?
Yes, I love this question too. And in our actual SHIBA report, we have a map, and we have a matrix that shows kind of the 10 top areas, if you will, for Black homeownership. And what we see is a lot of times it's just urban cities and communities. But traditionally, the South has been kinder to Black homeownership, mainly just because of the cost of living and the pricing. So there's more opportunities in the Houston than there would be in a New York, just because of cost. There's more opportunities in Birmingham, Alabama than it would be in Los Angeles. You know, when we see the lowest homeownership rates, mainly because just the cost of the average home is, you know, $600,000 plus. So those opportunities are just less. But in the State of Housing Black America report, we do have a map, and we do have a matrix that shows top cities in terms of Black home ownership.
Great. And how can real estate professionals, including realtors, better support Black home ownership
I
or better home
love
buyers?
this question, because there's so much that can be done. But I'll just kind of summarize with this one thing, and that is understanding the issue. If you understand, and that's why I love today's program, because hopefully my hope is that realtors listening have a better understanding of some of these challenges. So as you understand, okay, there's going to be a challenge with debt to income ratio. There may be a challenge with, you know, finding the right house in the price point. If you understand going into the situation, working with a Black consumer, what these challenges are, my hope is that that understanding creates a better working relationship because you understand the problem and understand systematic racism and how we got here, and you understand that there's gonna be a little bit more challenges that we have to overcome. That understanding can hopefully make you more patient. That understanding can hopefully, make you a little bit more creative when it comes to, okay, I'm not just going to recommend one lender to you. Let's go to 3 lenders, because this may take, up to 3 different lenders looking at this to really get us past the finish line. Annette, you just mentioned it. Wait a minute, those folks in my pipeline, I need to encourage them and reach out to them more. The understanding to know that there's challenges with Black consumers, and we as their trusted advisors need to understand those challenges and take the extra time with those particular consumers to help them overcome them.
Great. What role, and I know you love this one, what role does financial literacy play in increasing Black home ownership, and how can organizations contribute?
Financial literacy is everything. It's everything. And that's for any home buyer, but particularly because in the Black community, you're dealing with first time and first generation. So understanding how credit works, understanding how the debt to income ratio is calculated. I mean, we've literally had clients in our office that's trying to figure out, how does this debt to income ratio work? Wait a minute. Okay, I have a full credit line, but I pay it every month. Yes, you do pay it every month, but the bank is looking at, how much of this credit are you using? They take the average monthly payment of this one and that one and that one, and they add it all up. But that understanding, again, my parents never did it. My grandparents never did it. This is not what we talk about at the kitchen table. I can't call a cousin and ask about it. So that financial literacy piece, what I have found is really, really important. Once a person understands and gets it, they can govern themselves accordingly. But a lot of times in our community, we just have never been taught this information, and we don't have an understanding of it. Once we get it and it clicks, then we know how to govern ourselves accordingly. So financial literacy is everything.
Yes, thank you so much. And that's really a very large role in democracy and housing that NAREB has been very
Yes.
proactive in since 1947. Matt, do you see any questions or anything in the chat
We'll have a chat
that might
page.
need to be said?
So
Matt, still with us?
we had a number of questions and lots of different thoughts dropped into the chat. A lot of conversing just with our members, kind of in the flow of things, for sure.
Okay. Anything that might stand out that might be a question before we have to let this busy president off of our line here?
So I do have a couple of things to toss in, because I know we have a number of different attendees here with us today who maybe haven't been with some of our previous coffee talks, but we've done quite a bit of work as it relates to tangled titles and trying to work with the Register of Wills on that. A lot of education. If we go back to general membership meeting a few years back, we had them there, had a table, and they were accessible. So definitely a big issue there. As it relates to appraisal bias, Annette, you mentioned this earlier, we've had a seat at the table during those different conversations. Initially, Mayor Sherelle Parker, who was a city council member at the time, she led the conversation there, and we were there and participatory. We're involved with the report that came out, and highlighting some of these things that Courtney has been touching upon here with us this morning and part of these conversations. These things are not just unique to Philadelphia, it's all across the country. And one of the good things is we're trying to work on things here in Philadelphia to close some of those gaps and to also bring about awareness and education. I think that's one of the main thrusts of today's conversation here. When we go ahead and we look at the tour that's going to be happening, the stop here in Philadelphia in April, there's just so many things where there has to be an education component to all this. And we look at this, it happens in many different subsets that relates to either home buying or advanced education. fear of going ahead and interacting with some of these institutions that for very long times and very long periods have discriminated. And so there is weariness as it relates to those things. So there's a lot of education, there's a lot of trust that has to be built. And I think GPAR has been trying to be at the table, be a part of those conversations.
Yes.
As well as having a conversation like we're having here today, right? This is all part of this composite that we're trying to do to drive the importance of home ownership and get more people into homes. Communities are better. Philadelphia is better when we have more home ownership. So there's a lot of different pressures pushing on that right now. So Annette, you have any other questions that you would like to fire off before we wrap this up?
No, but I just want to thank you, Matt, for thinking about NAREB and having the state of housing of Black America addressed by our president, Dr. Courtney Johnson Rose. And I also want to give a shout out to the Philadelphia Metropolitan Board of Realtors. Many of them are also members of GPAR. So, Madam President, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. We love you. Stay safe.
Thank
All
you.
the membership, thank you so much for taking the time out this morning to join us.
Thank you, everybody. Blessings,
All right,
everybody.
thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Black History
Have a
Month.
great day.
Yes.
Go Birds.
Take care. Yeah.
Go Eagles.
Bye-bye.